Welcome back to Eerie Files. In our previous episode, we outlined the chilling, generational terror that has gripped the Hernandez family for decades. We established the ancient rules of survival and the bizarre truce one brother, Abel, struck with the creatures. Tonight, the peace shatters. We are diving into the modern era, where the dogmen stop just observing the borderlines and start asserting their dominance with violent, undeniable confrontations. These files contain absolute proof that the monsters are not only real but are actively calculating their next move. We begin with Jerry, the man who first brought this whole saga to our attention. Jerry is a tough, no-nonsense contractor, but he was permanently broken by his one, single encounter on Christmas Eve, 2006. He had 4 large, highly trained guard dogs, German Shepherds and a pit bull mix, out in his backyard. Suddenly, the dogs did the unthinkable. They didn't bark, they didn't growl, and they certainly didn't charge. They silently retreated, huddling together in a terrified, trembling knot in the far corner of the yard. Jerry went outside, expecting to find a raccoon, but was met with something far worse. Standing right on the fence line, illuminated by the holiday lights, was the creature. It was at least 7 feet tall, covered in a deep reddish-brown fur, with a terrifyingly long snout. Jerry's little boy, seeing the profile, whispered, "Daddy, is that a giant rabbit?" That simple question highlighted the horrific disconnect. Jerry knew the terrible truth. He was looking at the same Red-Brown Dogman that haunted his entire family line. Now we move to Jerry's younger brother, Robbie, who experienced a prolonged nightmare. Robbie was hunting hogs from a stand on Noah's property as dusk fell. He spotted movement in the bushes, about 100 yards out, seeing a large, canine-like ear through his binoculars. The creature was initially low to the ground. Then, fueled by a disastrous mix of youthful stupidity and adrenaline, Robbie whistled, trying to draw the target out for a shot. That whistle was the absolute worst mistake he could have made. The creature accepted the invitation. It emerged from the darkness and stood straight up, instantly abandoning its canine form. It began walking toward him, just like a man, swinging its impossibly long, powerful arms. Robbie described a creature built like a terrifying bodybuilder, topped with a massive, wolf-like head. The sheer scale of the beast was overwhelming. From where it stood, Robbie said its enormous bulk literally blocked out the setting sun behind the trees. Robbie was paralyzed in his stand, watching this monstrosity methodically close the distance. He was trapped between the instinct to shoot and the paralyzing fear of engaging such a massive, intelligent predator. Then, a truly bizarre moment occurred. What Robbie later called a miraculous intervention. A sow and piglets emerged nearby, distracting the creature from its immediate target. The dogman instantly dropped back down to 4 legs, shifting its focus entirely to the wild hogs. Robbie seized his chance. He quietly opened the flimsy tin door of his shed, but the scraping noise was just loud enough to betray him. The creature instantly cocked its head, sniffing the air, briefly torn between the easy human prey and the immediate porcine meal. Ultimately, the creature chose to pursue the fleeing hogs. Robbie made a frantic dash for his ATV, speeding out of the clearing and onto a treacherous path toward his uncle's house. His escape route was immediately compromised by a second, equally lethal enemy, Simon, the Braford Bull. Simon was an infamous, 1,800-pound beast with a notorious disposition, a certified killer. Robbie was now trapped in the ultimate nightmare, the Red-Brown Dogman chasing him from behind, while the territorial Braford Bull charged him from the front. He was caught between being gored to death and being torn apart and eaten. Robbie eventually wrecked the ATV and scrambled up the nearest mid-sized oak tree. The bull, in a fury, remained planted at the base of the trunk. The dogman, having followed him to the pasture fence line, did something truly counterintuitive. The behemoth flattened itself onto the ground, hiding in the tall grass. This creature, powerful enough to block the sun, was actively choosing to avoid a skirmish with the bull, suggesting a frightening tactical calculation or perhaps fear of injury. Hours later, long after midnight, Jerry, Andrew, and Uncle Noah arrived in the truck. Robbie was screaming at them from the tree, pointing to the crouching figure. Noah successfully distracted the bull, but Andrew, Jerry's skeptical father, was utterly dismissive of his son's terror. He shined his light on the area Robbie indicated and sneered. "What thing? That's just a dirt mound." Andrew, wanting to prove his little brother was suffering from hysteria, walked confidently toward the spot. When he was about 15 yards away, he turned back to the truck to deliver the punchline. "I don't see anything." In that precise moment, the dirt mound decided to prove its existence. The Dogman stood straight up behind Andrew, revealing its impossible size and menace. The shock was total. Andrew turned, locked eyes with the monster, and was so overwhelmed by terror that he immediately tripped, fell backward, and dropped his flashlight into the dirt. In a single, unbelievable leap, the creature cleared the chest-high fence and then sauntered, calmly, almost defiantly, into the darkness of the woods. It had made its point and then simply walked away. The creature's appearance, in full form, was enough to break Andrew's decades-long silence and denial. He was now an undeniable eyewitness, an official victim of the terror he had spent his life suppressing. The incident proved that the threat was not only real but capable of forcing direct, terrifying engagement. It was a calculated move to terrorize the very man who refused to acknowledge its existence. The encounters weren't limited to the Hernandez brothers. Shane, their neighbor, was ambushed while riding his horse near Abel's property line. His seasoned mare panicked, threw Shane off, and fled, brutally snagging its leg on the barbed wire in its sheer desperation. Shane was left bruised and disoriented on the ground, witnessing the creature bounded out of the tree line. The Dogman approached and sat there, like a football player, ready to deliver a catastrophic tackle. Shane, injured but clear-headed, managed to draw his .357 pistol. What followed was a terrifying display of the creature's intellectual capacity. It knew what the weapon was, and it treated the standoff like a strategic game. This was a game Shane called pistol poker. When Shane struggled to get his boot on and leveled the gun, the Dogman would immediately crouch down in submission. But the moment Shane eased his aim or looked away, the creature would begin to rise, testing the limits of Shane's fear. This was not a mindless predator driven by instinct. It was a calculating killer, deliberately toying with its human prey. Shane eventually fled, but the creature left a terrifying signature on the property. When the horse was recovered, it had a long, deep gash on its right flank. This was not a random injury. It was a wound that spoke to lightning speed and surgical precision, inflicted during the chaotic blur of the ambush. It was a chilling warning that these things could wound or kill at will, even when the human thought he had escaped. Our final encounter belongs to Jojo, the youngest uncle, the family's resident joker, and the most vocal skeptic. He always dismissed the stories as BS. His definitive encounter didn't even happen on the ranch but 5 miles away at a construction site in the nearby town of Buda. Jojo was working alone late one night, laughing at the thought of his nephew's tall tales. Around midnight, his skepticism was violently shattered. He saw movement at the kitchen window and instinctively locked the front door. But then he heard something walk up the porch steps. He peered through the peephole and was met with nothing but solid black. The creature was pressed directly against the wood. Jojo heard it grunt, then it suddenly vanished from the front porch. The creature, demonstrating cunning, had retreated to the open garage and was now inside the structure. It began violently banging against the inner door leading into the house, causing the doorknob to frantically rattle. Jojo, in pure, raw panic, fled to his truck. He finally got the engine started and looked back for a terrifying final glimpse. There, staring out of a glass panel in the garage door, was the creature. Jojo described it as jet black, solid black as night, looking like a monstrous bear-wolf mix. He watched in horror as its powerful arm, covered in black hair, reached through the broken panel. Jojo sped away, pistol in hand, only to suffer the cruelest twist of fate upon his return home. His wife, seeking safety, had unloaded the pistol days earlier. The peace of mind Jojo had during his hysterical drive was based on a lie. But the truth was delivered the next day when the family returned to the site. The creature had destroyed the property. The garage door was bowed out and broken in half, and the inner door was ripped off its hinges. As a final, primal insult, it left a 2-inch-long gash in the drywall and a large, foul-smelling puddle of urine in the kitchen. The evidence was irrefutable.